Delta CX, available for CX and UX consulting, projects, and training. Contact us for a free consultation.
Hey everybody, it's me, Debbie Levitt from Delta CX. How are you doing? This is our weekly adventure together for Office Hours Ask Me Anything. I do it pretty much every week at this time, so if you find that you have questions that need answers, you are looking for me. Let's put up the official questions URL. So you are welcome to ask questions in the YouTube chat, in the LinkedIn chat, or using the anonymous URL, which will come to my email. So I'll try to watch my email. That anonymous email is deltacx.link, which is my URL shortener. And then what's after it? /AMA for Ask Me Anything. So as usual, I'm happy to take any questions that come in. I'll do my best to watch the email for stuff coming in. And also the chats in both LinkedIn and YouTube. So let's see, we've got one person in YouTube. Hi, one person in YouTube. We have 6 people on LinkedIn. Hi, people on LinkedIn. How's everybody doing this week? Hopefully good weather wherever you are. Let's see, just moving my windows around to make it... All right, we already have a question. This is great. Thank you, Sukant. Sukant over in the LinkedIn chat, and Maggie says, hi, Debbie. Hi, Maggie. Sukant asks, what's the difference between a good product manager and a great product manager? And Paul has another question. I won't use the anonymous function. Why do we still use input type equals password? Quickly, Paul, I think the answer is because typically that will turn it into dots. But I would assume with better CSS we don't need that the way we used to. So I don't know. I don't do front-end dev, so I don't have a good question. I don't have a good answer for Paul. So let's go to Sukant. Paul, I don't have a good answer for you. Ask a front-end developer. Sukant asks, what's the difference between a good product manager and a great product manager? Well, I think there's 2 sets of answers to that. One set of answers would be, and by the way, am I loud enough? Let me know if I'm loud enough because I'm using a different microphone, and I'll try to turn it up if people want it. There's 2 sets of answers. One is the product manager doing their own job, which I've seen done well and not done well. And the other would be about their relationship with us. So let me try to answer that from my opinion from both angles. So to me, a product manager doing a great job, just kind of in a vacuum, would be one that is really excellent at creating a product roadmap and prioritizing features both for the CX UX teams as well as the engineers. It would be, again, this is before I talk about their collaboration with us. It would be a to me, a great product manager is someone who's really good at making decisions. You know, when engineering says, oh, we're running out of time, you know, maybe we should cut some stuff, and the product manager has to decide what's going to get cut, or is it going to get cut, or things like that. So I would think a product manager is really strong at making good decisions based on a lot of different factors. What would cutting something mean to UX? Does UX have to redo something? If engineering thinks they can just cut it to save time, but does UX have to redo something? What would that mean to marketing? Were they planning to market this feature and now it won't be there? What would it mean to delay it? So I think a product manager would be good at weighing those possibilities and making a strong decision. We always hope that a good product manager is taking a little bit more of the customer and customer centricity and voice of the customer into account rather than just taking business needs or business requirements or user stories into account, and that kind of shepherding that these things do have true customer value and fantasticness for the customer. What else would a product manager be great at? Well, let me talk a little, while I think about that, multitask, let me talk about where I think a product manager, It's funny. Every time I go live, the neighbor starts drilling something. So if you hear that, I'm not in any trouble. So let's talk about the product manager's relationship with us. Now, I do have a whole separate podcast that we did with Cameron and Jonathan as guests, and they are both product management managers and UX managers, and they talked about what they think the ideal relationship is between product and UX. So if you are more curious about multiple opinions on that, please go into the live podcasts playlist and find the episode on product managers and what should our relationships be with them. But obviously, from lots of other things that I talk about, I believe it's really endlessly important for people from CX and UX to be collaborating with product, portfolio, program, whatever they're called at different levels at your company, to make sure that every time we are considering a product, an epic, a feature, a story, that we're sure that it's got customer value, that we've done proper CX and UX research to make sure that this is the right thing to build for the customer. There's so much in Agile and parts of Lean and Lean Six Sigma that say, are we building the right thing for the customer? Have we taken the right steps to research and get to know the customer and their needs to determine that we're not going to find that we wasted time later? Did we really do the right thing? And are we headed in the right direction? And if we're not headed in the right direction, Agile says you're supposed to stop and go in a new direction, yet we don't do that. And I wish more product managers pushed for that. So product managers should be collaborating with us at all of these levels, since we usually have additional data, voice of the customer, maybe some other expertise and angles that should be part of that process. Oh, I just remembered that I usually write down all the questions I get so we can put them later into the YouTube description. So give me a moment to also paste these in. And thanks to everybody for these great questions. And let's see. Sukant, that's some of my initial ideas on that. I think maybe the podcast with the product managers might tell you a little bit more. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions. I'm always happy to take follow-up questions, either from the original question asker or from other people who want to jump on and ask follow-up questions, so please do. Sukant says, thank you for insight. Well, you're welcome. I hope it's a start. It's certainly not the full list, but when I think of a product manager, let me give you an example of a bad product manager. I had a job where nearly every product manager I worked with either wanted to draw the wireframes themselves, which essentially made my job very bad, or they came up with kind of fake or manipulated data as reasons to do a project. And when I would push for better data, magically they didn't have it. So I think another important thing for product managers, just thinking about what went wrong for me at other jobs, would be that they need to be much better about data and making sure that they're not spinning up projects without good data that give us good and meaningful and unmanipulated insights. And if the data leads us to a then take the time to let CX and UX spin up a research project so that we can fill in the gaps. We shouldn't be guessing, we shouldn't be assuming, and we definitely shouldn't be spending company money based on manipulated data. And I just could not get these people to stop doing that. So I think a good product manager doesn't do that. Let's see what else we've gotten here. Paul says, do we even need dots? I think a lot of people are still doing passwords that are masked, and then they usually have like an eyeball icon where you can flip between seeing your password or masking your password. I like masked passwords, so I'm kind of for it, but I don't know if we still need input type equals password, because that seems a little HTML old school, and I don't know if that's still done. Quick thing, I am wearing my rainbow San Francisco shirt, but you can't see because it's getting green screened out. But I know it's the end of Pride Month, but to me, every day should be Pride Month, and every day should be Pride Day. So let's see. Maggie, asks, from your experience, what's the best way to hit the ground running when either starting a new project, if you're working with a client, or starting at a new full-time job? Ooh, good question. Let's see if I pasted that in. Yes, I did paste that in. Ooh, how do I start a project? You know, it's a little bit hard to answer only because I tend to start projects differently based on the environment I'm in. I tend to be someone who adapts to where I'm working. So if I am freelancing, contracting, or in a full-time job, sometimes I have to adjust to how they do things. But normally there's a kickoff meeting where we figure out who we all are. There should be some sort of discussion or document on what the boundaries of different roles are, not to create silos, but to make sure that we're not duplicating work or fighting over territory. So, for example, we wouldn't want the product manager saying, well, I'm going to draw wireframes. And I'd be like, well, wait a minute, that's my job. Or I wouldn't want the visual designer to say, I'm going to draw wireframes. And I'd be like, well, wait a minute, that's my job. So I think in these early meetings, we have to determine some of our roles and boundaries. Again, not to silo people and not to take their jobs away from them, but just to figure out where we're all going to be playing, and to figure out opportunities for collaboration and opportunities for me to do my own darn work myself. I normally don't do kickoff workshops. I know sometimes you hear UX people say, oh yeah, the first thing I like to do is a brainstorming workshop, a co-design workshop, a design sprint, or whatever. And I feel like that's telling your client or your team really early on, I can't do my work without having all you guys tell me what you think. And I think it ends up working against us. I think it runs the risk of us looking like we can't seem to figure these things out ourselves. We need everybody's help. We need some sort of design by committee effort. So I am not for starting projects with these sort of team or group workshops. If you watch some of my recent podcasts, I talked about some Googling that I did to see what major respected publications suggest for team building, and none of it was holding group workshops. It was really more making sure that people understand each other's domains and roles, and making sure we've set the ground rules for communication and collaboration. And so I think it's hard to say where I would start with a client, because I feel like each one is a little bit different. Sorry, I can't give you a more solid answer there, but maybe if you want to give me an example, I'll try to tell you what I might do. Scott says, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello to Scott. How's it going, Scott? What is the temperature in Chicago? Monique says, oh yeah, my question's similar to Maggie's. Well, then there you go. Monique says, what would you recommend someone do during the first week of a new UX role? Okay, that is pretty similar. What would you do to orient yourself with the product or service and the team? I will answer that one because it's a little bit of a variation of Maggie's question, so let's paste it in. So normally when I'm added to a new team and I've got a project, of course, the first thing I try to do is read all the existing documentation about the project. And sometimes that's hours and sometimes that's days. Or sometimes all the existing documentation about the product, because very often it's an existing product and we're adding to it, so I need to get up to speed on it. Sometimes you're designing something brand new, but very often we're joining a company and then we're going to be adding to, or sometimes fixing, an existing product. Is the backlight too weird today, everybody? I'm not too sure what's the right thing to do with it. Let's try moving it forward. Sorry that everybody's my little experiment world here on Tuesdays. I want to obviously the kickoff meeting hopefully introduces everybody and establishes some of those boundaries, the tools we might use, the communication, the collaboration. But normally I'm trying to get really familiar with the existing product line that the company offers, or this particular product, or some of the scope, boundaries, asks, goals of this project. And very often I end up with a lot of questions because sometimes some of that is still a little fuzzy. And so sometimes I'll have questions for different people. I'll have to track them down, maybe schedule some short meetings, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and just get some of my questions answered, which are sometimes about scope or goals or metrics or how are we measure success criteria. How are we measuring that this project is successful? Or are we just going to do it and go, done? Orient myself with the product or team. Sorry, this is the neighbor drilling again. I don't have any special team building things I do. I don't do goofy team building things. I don't do sack races. I don't do, sorry about the drilling. Something about when 6:30 my time, this guy's always doing home improvement. But we love him, so, we can't complain too much. Monique, tell me if I'm going in the right direction, or if you want to ask a follow-up question so I can get a little more focused. Sometimes I end up answering too much or some tangent, and I don't really address what people need, so let me know. Scott's got a question. Let's copy and paste it into the question bucket. And Scott says, how would you recommend prioritizing research projects? I sourced some potential UXR questions from teammates on what they'd like to investigate and trying to figure out how to prioritize best. Well, I think that if you are going to be, say, interviewing and or observing customers, and you've done some nice collaboration to find out what other roles and domains and teammates are also looking to learn about our customers, then I'm not sure what the priority question is, because hopefully we're doing a long enough interview or observational study so that we can get everybody's questions answered. So unless somebody had really garbagey questions like, would you like this cup? Or, we're going to build a thing. What do you want? I mean, unless somebody's got garbagey questions, and if you've seen, I haven't done it on the podcast, but my representative garbage question is from an American TV commercial from the 1990s where a guy with his cat has a cat on his lap, and they zoom in on him, and he goes, is a cat's urinary tract health important? And of course, my thought is, only if you want to own a cat and be nice to it. Yeah, it's freaking important. So whenever I think of garbage questions, I think like, is a cat's urinary system important? Yeah. So I think my question back to you, Scott, if you want to give me a little bit more information, is why are we prioritizing? Can't we get everyone's questions answered except for the terrible questions? Scott says, I think I remember this commercial. It has stayed with me for like almost 30 years, like, because I'm such an animal lover. I've got 5 dogs and used to have cats, and I'm just like, how is that even a question? And so I use it in some of my talks as examples of, don't ever ask the question that answers itself. So there you go. And Scott also says, Chicago is turned into a bowl of soup in June. Stick a fork in us. We're done. All right. We've got a great question I see from Paul. Paul, thanks for waiting. I'm going through everything in order, and I know that LinkedIn people can't see the YouTube questions. YouTube people can't see the LinkedIn questions. And even though I have a system that combines them, you guys can't see it. So UX. So someday these things will all come together, and it will be a beautiful thing. So Paul says, is a workshop just another form of implicit bias? Are we building bias whenever we start a project with preconceptions about unproven matters? And Scott, I see you've got a follow-up here. I'll answer that in a moment. Paul, I do think there are a number of problems with having these early or first workshops. Obviously, I'm concerned about a sense of codependency or a sense of, what? Deb couldn't get the project started without getting ideas from me? Like, what did I hire her to do? I think it accidentally could make us look a little bit incompetent or soft. But also, I agree with Paul in that very often when we hold these workshops and we bring in our cross-functional teammates, somebody, especially if it's the type of workshop where we're sketching solutions. Now, mind you, if this is some sort of early or kickoff workshop, we might not have done research yet. So exactly are we trying to stab at solutions already when we probably haven't correctly defined and identified the problem or problems? Remember what Don Norman says, and this isn't a direct quote, I'm paraphrasing, but we are here to be problem finders. And that very often the problem as it is expressed by stakeholders is usually not the real problem, or sometimes not even a problem. Like my product manager who said 27% of mobile web users are not filtering their search results, so let's create a feature that forces them to filter search results. Not a problem. Not a problem unless you can show me data that says the people who don't filter search results don't buy from us, don't buy as much, complain to customer support. Like, show me a real problem, not just a number. So I do agree with Paul that some workshops run the risk of not just bias, because the bias comes from the people attending them. But the problem with the workshops comes from, in my opinion, early latching on to solutions when we should still be considering what's going on here. Who are our customers? What's their experiences? What tasks are they trying to accomplish or jobs to be done? What can we do? What can we do for these people? So I feel like if and when we haven't correctly and deeply worked on that, then to start stabbing at solutions in whatever form that comes, whether that's design sprint, co-design workshop, blah blah blah. I'm just not for it. Let's see. We got a question that came in from the email. So after I look at Scott's follow-up, we will answer the one from the email. So remember, you can also email anonymous questions if you'd like. If you don't want to ask them here, deltacx.link/AMA. And also a reminder to everybody to please subscribe on YouTube. It's a great way to keep seeing content from me and show that you support what I'm doing. Let people know that you can subscribe. It is free. I do not charge you for this. You can also hang out in my Slack universe, which is deltacx.link/join Slack. And if you're nice, you can stay. Otherwise, please don't stay. So that would be some things that you can do. And of course, thank you for supporting what I'm doing by subscribing. Let's get that out. All right. Scott's follow-up said, I'm effectively the researcher here, and I have more questions than I can do, and we're looking to test out a new research protocol, so I'm just trying to see what should be best. Scott, that sounds like territory where you should probably book some time with me. I am offering people a free consultation, and I don't think we've had a free coaching session. I don't think we've had one before, so if you'd like, we could use our time for that, and I could take a look at some of these questions and see if I can help you out with them. Paul says, good answer. Thank you, Paul. And okay, so that covers everything we've got in YouTube and LinkedIn so far. Keep asking your questions, both in the chat rooms. Throw your comments out there. I do take absolutely any questions, so please let me know what you've got. So let's take a look at what just came in on the email. And anonymous person, and I genuinely don't know who these emails come from. Hi, Debbie. Was wondering what a new UX designer could possibly do to help create value to mentors or to the UX community at large. Wow, what a wonderful, wonderful question, because I really do have an answer to that. And honestly, in many ways, my answer to that would really be some things I wish some juniors and up-and-coming associate-level people and entry-level people would kind of stop doing. So let's read that one again, make sure we get it. What a new UX designer could possibly do to help create value to mentors or to the UX community at large. My number one answer is, please stop doing anything that hurts the UX profession. I know that sounds obvious, and I know if you're hanging out in my world long enough, you know that I'm on fire about those things. But, you're not invisible. When you post things on LinkedIn, when you write Medium articles, people see them, and some of them show the UX profession in a negative light. Some of them make fun of more senior people in ways that come off as ageist and unappreciative. So I know that some boot camps and schools will say, hey, try to look like a thought leader, start writing articles about UX and what you're learning here or how UX should be done. And let's call this what it is. If you have not had a UX job yet, you probably shouldn't be writing articles about how to do UX because you've only just learned and you might not have even learned well or correctly. There might have been some errors in how you took the material, or you might have had poor material. And when people go out there and they post these articles that say this is how UX should be done, if the article is crap or makes a poor suggestion, that's bad. That's going to create conflict. And if someone's thinking of hiring you and they start Googling you and they find these articles, you could hurt yourself because we might see you as someone who has some pretty bad ideas, but a high level of confidence, maybe even arrogance, which I call confidence without merit, and that could hurt the community. So step one, do not hurt the community. If you want to give back to the community, do not hurt the community, but I do see people doing this. If you are connected with me on LinkedIn or following me on LinkedIn, you may have seen some of the bizarre battles I've been in the last couple of weeks with boot camp graduates who have pretty much bitched me out in public on LinkedIn. In many cases because I don't like boot camps, not because I don't like or support them, but just because I don't like boot camps. One guy bitched me out because evidently I wasn't answering his questions fast enough on a Saturday. You have to remember that not only does this reflect badly on you, but when people see you work in UX, what I end up hearing is, yeah, just another artsy-fartsy hipster, or just another high-ego UX designer or artisty person. When you look like a jerk, when I look like a jerk, we hurt the community. I'm working hard to look like less of a jerk than I did last year. I need you to join me on that. Don't go into fights that aren't worth going into. Please stop posting crappy articles. Please don't share articles that hurt the profession. When you see an article that says, famous conference speaker and trainer dude says everyone's a designer, that hurts our industry because not everyone is a designer. Not everyone is good at UX. These are things that look good on the surface, and I need you to put your critical thinking hat on. Now I'm keeping my critical thinking hat here. We've got to put on our critical thinking hats, and we've got to say, does this help the industry or does this hurt the industry? I have to think about possible outcomes and say, if I share what this guy said, am I raising up the community, raising up the profession, helping better people get hired, improving our jobs, improving understanding, or am I contributing to the chorus of voices that are basically saying anybody can do UX work and UX really isn't that important and blah, blah, blah. Scott says cashing in my LMAO on famous conference speaker says everyone is a designer. Yeah, some of you are here often enough to know who I mean. So critical thinking hats on when you see other people's articles, including mine, articles, Medium articles, YouTube videos. You do not have to share everybody's everything. Just because they claim they're a UX design leader or in charge of awesomeness at their own company or whatever it is, you don't have to press like, you don't have to comment, and you don't have to share it because some of it's garbage. So how can you give back to the community? I would settle for you not giving back to the community. I understand that those looking to enter into UX might be taking more than they're giving, and I'm okay with that because I know in 3, 4, 5, 8 years you will be giving to the community. You will have become a senior, you will have become a lead in 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now, and you will be giving to the community. I'm okay with you taking right now. I really am. I'm not okay with you sharing endless articles on why design thinking is great and everyone needs to be a design thinker. Put that critical thinking hat back on and ask yourself, how did I just kill my own chances of getting a job because I made it sound like anyone who says they're a design thinker can do my work? So I will settle for you to stop sharing junk. How's that? Let me know if you have a follow-up question. You can fill out the form again. You can comment in YouTube or LinkedIn. You guys can add to that if you'd like. Let's see. So again, this is Office Hours. Ask Me Anything. I'm live on YouTube every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. my time, which is Central Europe. Please adjust your clocks and calendars for whenever that is for you. Let's see, that's 12:30 on the east coast of North America. It's 9:30 in the morning on the west coast of North America. It's 5:30 p.m. in the UK. Hopefully that covers some of you. So please do subscribe. I'm really hoping in the next month or so that I can get to 1,000 subscribers. That would be a huge milestone and something I'm very excited about. So please subscribe, and if you enjoy the podcasts, please post to LinkedIn about it. Tell friends about it. It's the best you can do. A quick reminder about the LinkedIn algorithm, which keeps changing. If you like someone's post, the number one best thing that you can do is comment on it. Even if that comment is hi, even if that comment is thanks, even if the comment is agree, you will do so much more for that post's visibility and place in the algorithm than pretty much anything you can do. It's better than a like, and it's even better than a share. You would think like, oh, LinkedIn really wants me to share this. They actually don't. It looks like spending time on that post and reading the whole post and then leaving a comment is the number one thing you can do. So when you see content you like, the number one thing you can do is spend time reading the whole thing and then leave that comment. If there's content you don't like, stuff that's BS, something you disagree with, leave it as fast as you can and don't comment on it, because LinkedIn is counting how much time you spend looking at it. That supposedly goes to its quality and not your incredulity. What's the right way to say that? How incredulous you are at the bull poop that you're reading. And if you disagree with something, you don't have to pick a fight. You're probably not going to change anybody's mind. Sometimes people behind the scenes contact me and they say, Deb, why didn't you try to change that person's mind? I can't change everybody's mind, and sometimes it's not worth the conflict. I don't want to be. I tried that last year. I showed up at everybody's posts and said, no, what about this? And I don't think it was the right way to go. So now, and especially knowing what I know about the algorithm, if you don't like something or someone, the best thing you can do is move past their posts very fast. Don't comment, and you will help that sink to the bottom of the LinkedIn algorithm ocean. Paul says incredulity, if you say so. Honey, in Italian, what's the word? Incredulità. Okay, so Paul could be right in English. Okay, he says incredulity. I'm just going to go with Italian on this one. Incredulità. With a giant explosive ah on the end. Giant explosive ah on the end. Honey, is that right? Yeah. Words ending in A with that funny accent. Big explosive ending. Yeah, boyfriend says yes. So now y'all learned an Italian word. Incredulità. Maggie says, I prefer the Italian. Well, Maggie, memory says you're in like Iowa. I'm not sure how much Italian's going to fly out there, but you are welcome to pick up some. I'm still learning Italian. So this is a great example of talking about boot camps. Who do you want to learn Italian from? My boyfriend, who speaks Italian. My Italian teacher, who is a professor of teaching Italian. Yes, her. Or me, who's still learning Italian and is still saying the wrong things at times. No, you want to learn from the super awesome expert professor who knows the language and knows how to teach. Oh, Maggie says my first language is Spanish. Yes, but they're not as close as you would think, Maggie, because I grew up speaking Spanish and I am struggling. Sometimes I accidentally end up in Spanish mode, and my Italian teacher says, un po spagnolo, which is, that's a little Spanish. And I go, oh yeah. Gets me every time. The thing that gets me the most, Maggie, is the The imperfect form of ser, which is like io era. In Italian, it's ero. And I keep saying era because that's what it is in Spanish. So they are not as close as you would hope. Sometimes I send recordings of things being said in Italian to a friend of mine who's fluent in Spanish, and she goes, yeah, I got like 2 words. Yeah, she said Italian was tricky for me to learn. It is. It's got way more grammar rules. It makes English and Spanish. I thank the aliens every day for Spanish, for Spanish greatly simplifying Romance languages. They definitely win. They did a great job, I mean, with regular pronunciation. Anyway, this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. We've accidentally ended up in a conversation about Romance language linguistics. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to keep drinking my dinner shake. But I am taking absolutely any questions you guys would want to ask. I will check the email. Okay, nothing new there. Remember, you can ask a question in the LinkedIn chat room or the YouTube chat room, as well as the anonymous URL, which is deltacx.link/AMA. This link is good all week long. So if you come up with a question tomorrow and you'd like it to be answered at next week's office hours, go ahead, go to that link, send in the question. Yum, 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 yum. What's everybody eating today? It's probably lunch or dinner for most of you. Breakfast for a few of you. Mid-morning snack for a few of you. Any questions? Again, questions on any topics are welcome. Hopefully I have the knowledge to answer them, but I'm usually honest about if I don't. Maggie says lunch for me, ramen. Just gonna nod at that. Good luck. What did I have for lunch? I had a hamburger. Is that all I had? Oh, and a giant ball of mozzarella cheese. Okay. We found some cheese that had like today is the expiration date, and we're like, wow, 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 wow. Sorry. I think I ate like half pound of cheese. So that's a pretty good meal. Hamburger and half a pound of cheese. Go keto. Any questions? Hello, this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. I'm your special friend, Debbie Levitt. See, can I? Nope, wrong button. There we go. I'm your friend, Debbie Levitt. You can find me at deltacx.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. Please follow. And, of course, subscribe on YouTube to the Delta CX channel. Also available by going to deltacx.tv, which will redirect you to the YouTube channel. So I'm here to answer any questions you guys have. I usually stay an hour. That gives us 22 more minutes. We got to come up with something. If we don't come up with something, I'm going to give you guys the URL to join, to be one of like the callers, like, you know, Sports Talk Radio. You can call in. Paul says mozzarella is not the translation of the word cheese. No, cheese is formaggio. I don't have to ask my boyfriend. I have learned cheese. Thanks, Paul. Dragos is here. Just read a study that says that bad reviews makes a store more credible. What do you think? I can actually speak to that, but first I'm choking on my dinner shake. Okay, let's talk about what Dragos is saying. And he's like Mr. Reviews, everybody. Thanks, Paul. I am right. I know Italian for cheese. I'm here 2.5 years. I got cheese. Okay, so Dragos says, just read a study that says bad reviews make a store more credible. What do you think? I think that can be true because I have a couple of clients. I tend to specialize in e-commerce. I've been specializing in e-commerce since 1997. And I do have a few clients who like make their own products. I have a couple of beauty clients who make their own beauty products and sell them through e-commerce websites. And they all had like review systems built into their WooCommerce or whatever. And of course, all of their reviews are 4 stars, 5 stars, 4 point something stars because, excuse me, everybody loves all of their products. None of their products are duds. I don't know if they're removing bad reviews, but everybody loves all the things. And I said, we could simplify the interface here and just remove the reviews, because I'm not sure anybody cares to see that every single product you have magically has 4 point something or 5 stars. I think that when every product has an amazing review, it starts to become a little bit meaningless. What's the point? And all of these products are yours. So it's not like people are here comparison shopping on Amazon where it's like, should I get this company's cup or this other company's cup? It's ultimately all yours. This is your walled garden. So I think if people saw some negative reviews, they might feel like, oh, this is more honest. This is not just all everybody loves this product. It's all endless fantasticness. But I tend to think with some of these smaller sole proprietor or entrepreneur type of e-commerce sites, especially where they are making their own products, and I have a few of these clients, I just told them, take reviews off. You don't want a bad review up there of your products. You want them to contact customer support and get stuff resolved. But when you have just nothing but fantastic reviews, oh, this product helped my skin, oh, this product is amazing, oh, this product, people are like, are these real? I think a lot of us have become so jaded, that we look at a whole bunch of great reviews and we go, are these real? Like even when I go to Amazon, even when it says verified purchase, sometimes I read these and I go, I don't care if this person purchased this and maybe got refunded secretly later. I just don't believe this review. Drago says, I do agree. Do you think 3-star reviews should be pushed up a bit? Yeah, I mean, why? Because ultimately, I don't want people to see bad reviews of stuff on my site. So I think it really depends on the type of site you have. If you have a site where all of the products were made by you, I would probably just take reviews off. You don't want them, and you really don't want bad reviews up there of the stuff you make. If you are a reseller of things and you want people to figure out which is better, this tape dispenser or this tape dispenser, then sure, maybe we can do some experimenting with different ways of showing reviews to see where people find the most believable. So I remember when I worked at Macy's, the UX researchers went out and they did a study, and it wasn't related to any particular project. It was just an independent study on how do people perceive pricing, and when do they believe pricing is a good deal, and when do they believe pricing is a bad deal, and how do we express or write the pricing to make it look like a good deal. We should have that type of research being done for each client, because it's going to be different for different clients. So you can't do it once and say this is true for everybody. That won't be the case. But for each client, we should be spinning up this type of research to be able to say, how do your customers perceive pricing, or how do your customers perceive reviews? Are these reviews meaningful? Are they being used? Are they helpful? Are they trusted? Do they add any trust or stickiness to your site? Or are they being ignored, or are they people distrusting of them? So that's going to be client by client, site by site, but it's research we should do. So let's take a look at some more questions we're getting. Hopefully that helps. Paul says, please explain the difference between e-commerce research and enterprise software research. I think probably some of the main differences of that, even though I've worked on a lot of SaaS systems, I'm not sure I would say enterprise is necessarily my expertise. So someone else who's done more enterprise work might have a different answer. But I would say it probably has to do with different types of customers and therefore different behaviors. So in e-commerce, not always, but very often it might be B2C where I'm trying to sell to an individual. Sometimes it's B2B. But certainly in enterprise software, there's a lot more layers of approvals and things like that. So for example, sometimes the person hitting the enterprise software site is not the person who's going to use the software. They're someone in procurement, or they're someone who assesses different things, compares them to each other, and decides. And so sometimes you kind of have different audiences or multiple audiences that you have to make happy. You have to make happy this procurement person and this finance person and this end user person. So again, not the strongest area of my expertise, but I would say ultimately every company, like we just said for reviews, every company should be doing unique, original, qualitative research with whoever are their target customers or personas to learn what they need to build for whom and why. So some e-commerce might be, I'm selling to Paul. Okay, I need to talk to 10 or so Pauls and learn more about that. Enterprise might be, I need to talk to the procurement person. I need to talk to the team leader who's going to deploy this. I need to talk to the end user who's stuck using this. And then we end up with kind of primary, secondary, kind of tertiary customers. Paul says, do you make a differentiation between a commercial consumer and a business consumer of information? I tend to feel like business and commercial are very similar words. I'm not too sure what distinctions are being made there. I'm not sure I make a huge distinction there. If someone is a consumer of information, that's again probably like that procurement person who's going to investigate this product but never actually use it. So the information has to match what they need and be compelling to them. But again, I'm thinking some of this question is a little bit out of my league, but I hope I've been able to give you something that's helpful. But feel free to ask a follow-up question. Drago says more research, and then in parentheses, polls, user remote, etc. Yes and no, Dragos, because in the UX CX world, in general, we don't rely on polls, surveys, and focus groups. We find that a lot of this quantitative type of research really lacks the qualitative that we need. It's too easily skewed or manipulated, and sometimes it's just badly written, and we don't get the meaningful, actionable results. So no, I would not use polls, and I would not use surveys. This, whenever I talk about research, I'm absolutely talking about qualitative research, which is mostly, but not limited to, interviews and observational studies. So that could be your remote, your user remote there, but again, only in the context of proper CX and UX research. Dragos, I specialize in this. If you want to talk privately about this, about maybe some way for our companies to work more closely together, let's just schedule some time, and we can talk more about it if this is an area you haven't gone into, but you certainly could for your clients. Neha is asking questions, and I'm sorry they got lost up in the chat, so let's answer some of Neha's questions. Neha, it's good to see you. How is your school going? So let's take a look. Neha's first question says, these days, sign in with Apple is common due to privacy concerns. Do you really think for general apps it should be used, like a booking app, a travel app, etc.? So yeah, very often on websites, apps, and other systems, you see that you can make a username and password with your email, or you can sometimes sign in with Google, sign in with Facebook, sign in with LinkedIn, sign in with Apple ID, things like that. I think it really depends on who your customers are and which of those companies you trust, because I don't like the Facebook thing, but that's just me. Paul says, can you ever really trust a poll? Maybe. Hold on. Paul, see the June 22 podcast we did on surveys. So maybe. So, do I think it should be used? I think if you have done some research and you find that a lot of your customers do have Google accounts and they like to use those types of authentications, we call them, or you have a lot of Facebook users, or there's a reason for you to use the Facebook API or graph. Is it still called the graph, or am I just outdated? So if you have a reason to do that, or if it really works well for your customers, you can. I personally like to use some login with Google in certain places, and other places I make sure to make an email and password thing. So I would never make it the only way that people can log in. So for example, I'm not even sure I have an Apple ID, or if I do, I can't remember it because I'm all Android and Windows. So if you are using those, just make sure they're not the only choices and that people still can use an email address and a password as another way to log in. So hopefully that helps. Neha had another question, which was, how much inspiration is okay to take from other similar apps? Which is a super question, and one that I'm sure a lot of UX juniors have, and sometimes more senior people. It's okay to be inspired by things you see from competitors or things you see from other apps. But remember, the best way to know if these are good ideas or not, or if you've created a good execution of an idea, is to take it to UX testing. So if you're going to take this to usability testing or some form of UX testing, you're going to learn very quickly whether or not this approach works for your customer. Sorry, my chair is always a little bit weird. So whether is it okay to be inspired by other things? It's okay to be inspired by other things. I don't want to see you ripping things off. That is certainly not the path to innovation. It's certainly not the path to disruption when we're just ripping off a competitor. And I'm sure the competitor will notice and maybe think everybody's a jerk. But ultimately, we still have to take these things to testing. You don't want to say, well, Amazon did it this way, so we're going to copy that, and Amazon liked it, so we're not going to test it, we'll just release it. This would be the wrong way to go, and this is cutting corners in a bad way. So always make sure, oh, thanks. Paul says he likes my earrings. Thank you, Paul. They were $1 each. That's about my budget. Just titanium. Neha, make sure that whether you're coming up with your own concepts or you feel a little inspired by something someone else has done, that you're not totally ripping it off and that you're still taking it through a proper UCD or human-centered design process to make sure that it goes to testing in an unbiased way, and we can determine if this is something that would really work for your customers in this product, in this device, in this scenario. And if it doesn't, take it out. Doesn't matter if it worked for Apple or for Macy's or for anybody else. If it's not working for your customers, it's okay to try again and do something different or take it out. She says, school's going fine. Good to see you again. You too. Nishesh is here, and I think we might make this a future podcast on its own, but let's answer the question. The question from LinkedIn says, your thoughts on the best way to have design documentation in place. Normally, one of the early things I do on a project, which goes back to our earlier question, which I didn't say at the time, was I tend to ask people on the team, what do they need from me, when and how? Sometimes when is not what I want to hear exactly, but certainly I'm at least asking, what do you need from me and how can I deliver it? Maybe I get to decide the when. That would be great. So sometimes people say, hey, we really love realistic UX prototypes because we don't want to read through a lot of documentation. We just want to be able to see this thing come to life and then we know what to build. I go, great, good news. That's how I work. Sometimes people say, we like wireframes with annotations. And I say, okay, I don't usually make you that, but sure, we can make you that. So normally for documentation, I try to adjust to the team that I'm working with because it doesn't make sense for me to give someone an annotated wireframe or some type of prototype, like I don't do envision prototypes, but say envision prototype, if that's not what works for everybody else. So part of good collaboration is finding out what works for everybody else so that you're not delivering something where people are going, that's not what we needed. So I think for documentation, yes, there are some things we make that nobody asked us for, like we might be making site maps, we might be making other things, and we should socialize those too, so that people don't think that all we do is draw boxes on a page and make prototypes. We should socialize all of our CX and UX artifacts and documentation and reports. But I think in general, I like to work with other teammates to see what they need from me and in what form they prefer that comes, because different teams I've worked with have wanted different things, and it doesn't make sense for me to be an ego head saying, oh, you need that? Too bad, I do this. Refreshing. I've got 5 more minutes here, and this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. As always, won't you please subscribe on YouTube? It costs you nothing. I don't charge you for it, and you're welcome to join the Slack channel as well. Okay, we've got a follow-up question from Paul that I like. Let's copy and paste it. Paul says, I do high-fidelity HTML, CSS prototypes. Takes longer, but I suggest more accurate. What do you think is more valuable, annotations or the actual thing? Well, I think there's a middle ground here. I'm not a big fan of annotations because I find that a lot of teams, including us sometimes, we just don't want to read all the documentation. An engineer may or may not want to look at a button and the 6 notes you've written about that button. So what I typically do is am creating Acture prototypes. And I'm not doing HTML, CSS, but I'm doing Acture, and that way I can make the prototype extremely realistic to how something will lay out and work and what the paths and flows are and the different branches and error states. But I didn't go ahead and write code. To me, that's somebody else's job, but so to me, that's kind of a good middle ground between, hey, I spent all the time coding it, and hey, I just gave you some sketches or wireframes with notes. Good luck reading all the notes, and hopefully you understood them the way I meant them, and see ya. So I am definitely a fan of realistic prototypes. Whether you're doing those in Acture or Framer, or someone recently said Principle to me, or you're coding, I think these are all good choices. So let's see. There appears to be a LinkedIn question from Larry Marine, who probably knows the answer to this, but I don't. And the question was, why don't spiders stick to their own webs? Larry, I don't know, and I'm not going to Google it, so I'm going to have to guess. Hold on, let's copy and paste that in as a question I got, even though I won't handle it particularly well. Why don't spiders stick to their own webs? I would imagine that there is, that either the material that their bodies are made of, or perhaps some sort of layer of something on their exoskeletons is somehow not sticky or not reactive to the substance from the web that they spin. That would be my guess. Larry, do you know the answer? I mean, you probably do. You know so many things. Just by way of saying hi. Well, you know, hi also works, but I accept that form. We did have somebody drop by here a few weeks ago and ask why the word fridge has a D but refrigerator doesn't, and had an answer for that, and that went well. So I always do my best to stab at stuff unless I want to disqualify myself. So I do not know the exact answer to why spiders don't stick to their own webs. I would also wonder if they don't let their bodies touch the webs, maybe just their legs do, and maybe there's like a surface tension-y kind of reason for this. I don't know. Do any of you know? Are you Googling this? Larry Marine needs to know. And we like him, so we want to make him happy. While you guys come up with any last questions, I'm going to jump into my calendar and just give you some quick notes because we've had some changes to the schedule lately. Remember, all upcoming podcasts and office hours are 6:30 p.m. Italy time. Please adjust for your time zone. Tomorrow and Thursday got swapped, so heads up, those of you who marked your calendars. Wednesday, tomorrow, will now be my podcast on portfolio do's and don'ts. Got a lot to say about that. I've been looking at portfolios again, and ouch. Thursday, July 2nd, we are having Celia Hodent on. Very excited about meeting her. She's going to talk about UX in gaming. Monday, July 6th, I have a white paper from 2004 on what they thought the future of the internet will be, and we'll be looking at how right they were. Tuesday the 7th, office hours. Wednesday the 8th, instead of doing a podcast, I'm going to be doing a live lesson on information architecture. I find it's something most boot camps seem to gloss over, and even though I can't teach you everything in the course of a live stream, I'm going to try to get some good core information out there and hopefully inspire people to learn more. Monday the 13th, I'm going to be doing a podcast that I'm calling Modeling Conversion Rate Improvements. So if we want to say we can improve this rate, like how can we model it? What would a 1% difference look like? What would a 2% difference look like? What would a 10% difference look like? What would it look like if we raised the price $1? So I'm going to show you a wacky little tool that I found that helps me kind of model that out. Tuesday the 14th, office hours. Wednesday the 15th, brand new. Just scheduled this right before this podcast. Please, please mark your calendars for this one because this one really needs you guys to join live. And I use guys quite generally. I hope no one's offended by it. Wednesday, July 15, 6:30 p.m. Italy time. We're going to do a live brainstorm on the problems and possible ideas for UX education and especially juniors. I think a lot of us realize how broken a lot of this is, and everyone's looking at each other like, who has the solution? Who has the solution? I have ideas, but it's hard for me to try them out in such a down economy and down job market. But my thought was, reach out to the community, connect to the community. I'm not the only person with ideas, and people will probably have better ideas than mine. So let's work together to brainstorm what's going wrong with UX education and what direction should it go in, and what can we do? Because if we don't start improving things for tomorrow's associates and juniors, they're going to be our seniors in 5 years, and what will they know how to do, and will they have jobs? So much to talk about. Larry says, I don't know about spiders, but you said ask anything. I always do. Maggie says, Celia is awesome. Yeah, it was either you or Scott, I think, who said to find her, and she said yes. So thanks for the suggestion. When you guys make suggestions, I write them down, and I chase people down, and I create stuff. I already have stuff into August. I just got one that was how agencies can get away from being order takers and move towards being more of a consultant. I think more agencies need to do that, and I'm hoping that person will have advice we can try at our corporate jobs too. So I am planning all kinds of amazing things, or I hope they'll be amazing. I'm excited about them, but I get excited about my own podcasts. Did you guys see last night? Oh, I loved it. I know it ended up a little bit of a lecture, but Mateo's so good, and he was so interesting, and I was just like hanging on every word. I don't know if you guys saw it. But if you want to know lots of things about making physical products digital, that was last night's podcast. Please remember that everything is archived in the YouTube channel. It fades away on LinkedIn. It fades into the algorithm, but on YouTube it's always there, and I've got things separated into different playlists based on what the heck it was. So please subscribe. And on that note, I'm going to have to shut down for now because in 10 minutes I need to prep to be a guest on Ira Wolf's podcast, where I'm going to be talking about my behavior triggers model and how it can be used to improve HR and candidate experiences, like when you are applying for a job. So I got to go run over to somebody else's podcast. But thanks to everybody for joining in. It was a great active question and answer session today. And hopefully I'll see you guys soon this week in other podcasts or somewhere else. And find me and connect with me or follow me. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day. Oh, wrong button. Here we go.
Thanks for watching. Delta CX is available for consulting and projects related to CX and UX strategy, leadership, training, problem finding, problem solving, and innovation. Learn more at deltacx.com.